Hey guys, you're watching Andrew Holmes TV. The goal of Andrew Holmes TV is to bring the best and the brightest right here in Chicago to teach you how do you take your investment business, real estate investing, to the next level. You know, it's impossible in 20 to 30 minutes to teach you all that you need to know to grow your business. About twice a year, we do a 3-day conference where we bring these experts and investors all at one place and at one time. The next conference that's coming up is February 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Imagine 400 plus local Chicago investors with over 4,000 investment properties. So you get to learn, you get to sit with, and you get to collaborate with people who are building their businesses. The best place to register is andrewholmestv.com. That's andrewholmestv.com. I hope you enjoy the next episode. Hey guys, this is Andrew Holmes, and as we kind of kick off this whole thing with the studio, with the show, we were thinking, who do you get? Who do you get that would make not only a phenomenal guest, but who do you get to inaugurate this whole thing and kind of do the kickoff? And we could not, in the Chicagoland area, when it comes to the investment business, come up with two better people. So if you guys don't know these guys, there is something really wrong, especially if you're going to be a real estate investor. So it happens to be the kings of the Southside, Mr. Frank Montro himself, and this guy you probably are not going to know, right? So a lot of times what you have is in a team, you have kind of a bunch of things you have to do. And with Frank Montro's team, there are two roles. It's the guy who's always in front, and then this is the hidden asset. So today, since we were going to do the kickoff, we thought, why not have Reggie come in and kind of really delve into flipping properties in a hot market and flipping properties in one of the most profitable parts of Chicago, which is the South Side. So gentlemen, welcome to the show. Frank.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it, man.
Definitely. So guys, as we jump in, let's kind of start with, I'm going to start kind of with you, Reggie, because I know Frank has a habit of talking a lot, right? So as we...
it is what it is.
Frank likes to talk.
I know. So as we get started, I want to kind of start with a little bit of experience. People who may not know you guys, where do you guys come from to this whole thing called real estate? How many years in business, and what is your business today?
I myself have been 39 years in the business, so started in 1980 and started in the mailroom. So I would work, the streets. I would put ads in the Sun-Times newspaper, which, probably is a little too, most of you don't understand that, but you put ads in the Sun-Times newspaper, and you would talk to the buyers, and you go out and show them houses. So started in the mailroom.
Got it. And as far as the two of you working together, how long have you guys worked as a team?
We've been working, on and off together since basically 1981, and
1990 is when we made the love connection.
Got it. Okay. So, so basically, a long time. And I want to kind of come back to you because you guys have a very unique business, right? I mean, what has made this dynamic duo kind of work is kind of the uniqueness of your business. So, Frank, when did you start in the real estate business?
So I started the last day in June of 1983.
1983.
So I've been in business for coming up, it'll be 36 years.
36 years.
Yeah.
So for those, some people may not know, right? The reason we have them here is there are a lot of real estate agents that sell properties, right? They work with REO companies and they give them a tons of listings. Guys, being an REO broker selling 300, 400, 500 houses is a big deal. But being a broker that sells 300 plus houses year in, year out consistently, that are retail sales and that are investor sales, I mean, this is a special breed. Hence, we have them here as the kickoff to the show. So, Frank, the numbers you guys are putting up consistently, a lot of your business relates to a lot of people who work with us at Chicago REIA and a lot of your clients. And a lot of them happen to be investors, people who want to use real estate to truly make money. Why? Why is the focus so much? Does it just happen that way? Was that the intent? How did it come about?
Actually, it was... we didn't start out by design, Andrew. I started out as a buyer's agent, and I was consistently selling, closing about 13 properties a month. Right. So by 1990, and this is where Reggie and I decided to pair up, because in 1990, all these investors are saying, wait a minute, this guy is selling everything out there on the South Side, and he's doing it at a high level, and these deals are closing, and there's no headaches, the deals aren't falling apart. So these investors started coming to us one by one. And then more and more word got out about the job we were doing. That's when we decided to pair up, because we're like, we got so much volume coming up, one mortal person cannot handle this. So what makes us great together is we're complete opposites. I'm the finder, he's the minder. You know, I go develop relationships with banks, resources, find the properties. He looks at them, evaluates them, and finds the home runs and the singles, doubles, triples for investors. So we just kind of fell into it because we're both doing a lot of high-level closing back in the late 80s and around 1990. So investors started coming to us. So it was a business that grew out of our hard work. And believe me, this is, you know, what people appreciate about us, Andrew, is it just didn't fall into our lap. You know?
Hold on.
Yeah.
I want to, before you jump into the next thought, I want to kind of come back, right? So what happens is this: you're out there, right? I mean, Frank Montro, if you're in this market, right, and if you have not heard of that name, and I mean it sincerely, from an investment perspective, there's something terribly wrong, right? Because you've done a superb job of not only building a big business, but you have a brand, right? And you're kind of out there everywhere all the time, right? That's what you do. But in the back, you need an engine that makes it kind of hum, right? So
Absolutely.
I want to kind of, from your perspective, Reggie, what exactly do you do?
Well, basically, once we start working with someone, I try to take them and understand what they want to accomplish. So I'll sit down, I'll talk to that person, I'll try and figure out what their business model is, and try and incorporate that into our business model so we can work together, and one would equal 3. So then once we do that, I would try and teach them, you know, the market, or just, you know, some knowledge that I have, pass that along to them. And then we would go out. I would just identify properties. I would explain how I would look at properties, what's important to look at, what you should buy, what you should kind of be leery of, and how we factor all these things into the equation to make a good buy versus a bad buy.
Okay, so that leads me kind of into the next question, because really the good buy versus the bad buy in the pocket that you work. I mean, it's a huge pocket, right? It's a south side of Chicago, not only in Chicago, but out in the suburbs, right? So it's a big region. But I'm going to say, it has always been, it is always going to be the hottest market in Chicago in terms of volume and in terms of profitability for the amount of money spent.
Always.
That it's always, right? And people are like, well, what about the north side? Guys, think about this. You can spend $150,000 today in Southside and make $30,000 to $40,000 consistently. Try doing that in the north side, right? You spend $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, and barely, if the deal goes well, you're going to make $40,000 or $50,000, right? Sure. Cash on cash return in the south side has always been the highest. But, and there's a big but, right? So that's what I want to find out is, number one, why is Southside so special, and what are the special challenges that come in doing business in the Southside?
So I'll start with that and then let Reggie take over. So the South Side is in an area that historically has a high turnover. I mean, ever since I've been in business, for whatever the reason is, it has a higher turnover. So there's always consistent buys there for investors. You know, whereas it's a lot more stable in other areas. So we have the stability issue there. We have properties that are not valued. So what happens is a lot of the big banks, a lot of the mortgage companies will not be aggressive with their appraisers. Whereas they go on the north side, they're like, oh, goodness, this is the north side, no problem. We're going to give, you want to spend $100,000 more for this house? So you've seen the north side, like since the crash in 06, the north side, Andrew, has been consistently going up in the teens every year. As we've seen with all crashes and all big shifts and all corrections, that always happens. That always leads to a major shift. And that's what we're seeing on the north side right now. You never see the south side do that because the banks look at the south side as a completely different world. They're not willing to be aggressive. They're not willing to allow the market to control the price points. The banks themselves will artificially control the price points. And so the good thing is, and I'm talking about that we're talking about from the beginning of our business career, right, from the 80s. Nothing has changed. Banks don't feel that any different back in the 80s than they do now. So the nice thing, the pluses are that area is always stable with prices. You're not going to lose your shirt. You're not going to see massive corrections. You'll see, you'll see shifts going on. The north side, you can see massive shifts, and people will get, completely wiped out with all their funds and with all their profits. It doesn't happen on the south side as much. However, if you want to get into the biggest challenges, I have people always come to me and say, "Hey Frank, give me the hot areas. Give me the hot areas." I'm like, I'm not going to be responsible for that.
Hold on. So you're going to get ahead again, right? Man, okay. I've always said, Frank, when you drop a pearl of wisdom, you got to drop it and you got to wait. It takes people time to absorb this pearl of wisdom, right? So you said something which is, why is it a challenge, right? What is the deal with Southside? There's a challenge, yet in that challenge, there's a huge amount of opportunity. I mean, tremendous.
And consistent.
I want you to pick it up there.
I was going to say, whenever there is challenges, there's opportunities, as Andrew said, that lie within those challenges. And that defines the South Side. So if,
well said.
There's always this larger stable of properties, so you're always dealing with more properties. The fact that there's greater turnover gives you more opportunities. And then every block is kind of different unto itself. So it's very, very important that you deal with someone that knows the difference between this, not only the neighborhoods, it's a lot tougher than the neighborhoods. It's really the blocks.
So let's actually talk about that, right? Which in the north side, or you come out to the northwest suburbs, you go out to the west suburbs in Chicago, that doesn't happen, right? If you're in Naperville, you're kind of in Naperville, right? If you're in Aurora, yeah, there's a part of Aurora which has a certain school district, but it's easy to define that, right? Yet in the south side, man, you can be a block and a half over and there'll be $100,000 price swing, right? We'll
Absolutely.
take that. So
Absolutely.
we bought a 6 flat that I called you guys, right? And I'm going like, the 6 flat was, it's in, I'm trying to think,
Chatham.
In Chatham, right? So living out in the suburbs, I have a real estate license, right? I'm going like Chatham. Oh my God, I remember the highway and exiting the highway and people panhandling. Now, mind you, we all live in a bubble. And if I live in the bubble of Oak Brook, or if I live in the bubble of Schaumburg, I view the world through that lens. So I think about Chatham, I take the highway exit by mistake, or I'm out of gas. It's the only time I take that exit. And then I see 2 panhandlers. Oh my God, there's a problem, right? Yet you make 2 turns and go to that street, and the neighbor is picking up a piece of trash. I mean, this was my first, I'm going like, man, this is better than some of the 2 or 3 flats we own in Berwyn. And that's the city, right?
Absolutely.
So
and again, it goes back to the opportunity and the challenges all rolled into one.
Right. And that's where you can buy, so now I want you to kind of talk about that, right? Because people will come, you've come and spoken at Chicago RIA, you've come and presented a lot of times at the 3-day, right? And the first question people ask, Frank, what is the secret, man? What area should I buy? And that's difficult in an area, so kind of talk about that you can't just go and say, oh my God, this area is very hot, because it's going to depend which block, which street, what is around it. Why does that happen?
So let me just start off by saying, where there is much opportunity, there's also much risk. So being able to sift through that risk is what this guy does at a very high level. So you take an area like Chatham, like when you go, when you get off the expressway, East Chatham is extremely desirable. And the further west you go, you're going closer and closer. Burnside properties, it changes from like ranches, bungalows, bi-levels, Georgians, really, really well kept up. And when you cross Cottage Grove and you go further east, you're still in Chatham, but it's almost like a whole different world. It's a lot more frames that it's just not as well kept, but it's still, there's still a lot of opportunity there, and we've made a lot of business there. It's just a different dynamics. It's not going to sell as fast, so you're going to have more holding time. So people say, hey, how good is Chatham? I said, where are you buying in Chatham? What block you buying? You go south of 87th Street near the Expressway, which you think, oh my God, this is going to be great near Michigan. You got some blocks like in the 8800. I look at this construction, I'm like, I've never seen anything like, I don't even know how to describe them other than they're two-story houses. They're not worth anything like the houses are just further north of it. So somebody's going to buy, somebody coming on the north side from Schaumburg, and they're like, okay, I don't know, I heard that, let's say, hey, I heard from Joe Blow, realtor, Chatham was good. You go and buy on like 88th near Michigan, and you buy one of those like unusual shaped two-story homes, and you're thinking, oh, this thing's got to be worth $250,000 because I got these, because my realtor, who really doesn't understand the business, gave me these other ones in the better section of Chatham. So now
in those just to break in for 2 seconds, those comps that the realtor gave me were only 3 blocks away. Well, they have to be good comps.
Yeah, and it's logical. That's a great point. So you don't know any better. He's coming from, you're coming from Schaumburg, or somebody's coming from the north side. They're trusting on the agent, and then it only makes sense. Hey, they're 3 blocks away. It should make sense. That's why.
So hold on. I want to take this point and kind of delve into it a little further. So think about this. You're an investor, right? You go to a class, you read a book, get excited. They say, well, you're supposed to do a comp in a mile. You're supposed to do a comp in a subdivision. There is no subdivision, right? So you're supposed to do a mile in a comp in a mile. You go to those areas and you try doing a comp in a mile, you're going to find comps all the way from 30,000 to all the way to 400,000. And a lot of the properties all the way from 30 to 300,000 might look exactly the same, and they may be 4 blocks apart.
Right? And I just want to pick up on that you have to really understand the neighborhood from the ground up, because if you don't, let's say, as Andrew said, well, we have these comps, but let's think about comps. Preferably, the bank would like the comps within 3 months. They would not like to cross any major streets, and they would like 4 of the same style of homes that have not crossed major streets, that are within a mile, that have sold within 3 months. Okay, so we identify this house that we say, yeah, that fits all those criteria. Let's buy this house. You buy that house, it's going to take a month to close. It's going to take 2 or 3 months to fix up. It's going to take another month, maybe 2 months to get a buyer. It's going to take another month till the appraiser went out there. Where do you think all those comps that you originally identified are now? Mm-hmm. Those comps are non-existent. The appraiser doesn't want to see comps from 6, 7 months ago. The bank is going to throw them back in his face and say, what kind of appraiser are you? He's going to have to come up with new comps since you bought the house. So if you don't understand the area and you don't understand historically what you're getting into, you could really pay the price, because that's old news. What happened 6 months ago has nothing to do with what the value is today. So you've got to be able to project the trends. While they're not up and down trends on the south side, they're still you have to be able to identify those trends going in, because you're projecting down the line. And you have no choice but to project down the line. If you're not willing to do that, you need to get into another business.
We interrupt this program to bring you one of Frank's fun facts. If you're looking at a property and you want to value it, look at what's deal pending. Because if you...
Hold on. Okay. Slowly repeat the same thing, because you're going to buzz through it and people are going to miss it. So
type A personality.
So typically, let me set this up for you, right? So typically what happens, what are you taught in real estate? You look at sold comps. If you didn't get what he just said, the last 2 minutes of what he just said, go back and re-listen to that particular section, because that'll relate to this. What they teach you is, hey, look at the active properties, look at the ones that are sold. That's what appraisers look at. That's not what appraisers look at if you're a really astute investor. What appraisers will look at, go ahead.
Market trend. So if there's a problem with finding comps in the area too, they're going to look at market. So let's say that you bought the house, let's say you bought property A thinking it's going to be worth $200,000 because all these older comps say it's worth $200,000. However, there's these properties that are coming up that are deal pended, that are getting ready to close, that are listed at 180. So now you know there's going to be a massive correction coming, and appraisers will, in their report, they look at stuff that's deal pended, they look at stuff that's active, and they're not stupid. They know that they're going to report back to their banks, and you'll see it on the appraisal report that they made adjustments based on our market trends. So you have to, this is where we're really good at it. I rebuttal appraisals all the time. Reggie's the field guy. I'm the numbers guy, so I'll review numbers and I'll tell them, hey, I think we may have a problem here before we make a bid. I see this area trending down, or I see this area trending up. Let's go for it.
Hold on. Let me put this in numbers, right? Mm-hmm. So let's think about what both of them said. If I combine the two, here's something that is to think about. Let's just say you look at sold comps today, and you're looking at sold comps between 205 to 215. So based on 205 to 215, you're going to go, hey man, I'm going to buy this property. I'm going to sell it for 220 because I'm going to make a beautiful fireplace, right? This is what happens.
Right.
And now what's happening is the properties that are being listed for 190, 195, maybe 200, and the ones that are pending contracts are 189, 185. What do you think they're going to close at? They're going to close below what they're pending at, what it's showing as pending.
More than likely.
Right?
Yeah.
So what he's saying is the trend, and this is within the same year, you'll typically have February, March, April, May, properties tend to sell higher closed prices. Later in the year, they tend to cool down. And what people will do is they'll buy a property in July. Oh my God, a property sold in March, man. You don't understand, Andrew, $215. So I'm going to pay $130,000 property. If you go to them, they're going to tell you, no, buddy. You got to buy this property not for 130, but to really make money, you got to buy this property for maybe 90, 95, maybe 100 or 105 max. Because guys, the devil is in the details. See, if it was easy just to say, well, I buy low and sell high, guess what happens?
Everybody would do it.
Everybody would do it, right?
Everybody would do
it. And this is where the expertise comes in. So I guess that's the other thing I want to jump into, guys, which is that a lot of people will go to your area, right? I mean, and we've seen investors with the onesies, twosies versus the investors from California and, all over the world, right? Oh my God, Southside has opportunity. I got $10 million. I'm going to buy all of Southside. And they come and they buy a lot and they leave a lot and they certainly go back with half or if anything that they came here with. And yet, on the other hand, you have investors that you guys are making money with day in and day out. Why is this arrogance whenever a lot of these people are coming from out of town and they think they can basically, whip everybody around that's been doing business here?
I'll tell you one reason, and this is sad, but what happens is an investor will tell an agent they're dealing with, hey, this is my buy box. I got to make 20%, 25%, 15%, whatever. So the agent will go and see what's on the market. And then rather than them giving an honest appraisal, they're going to fit everything in to make it look like it fits in their buy box. Rather than say, we pass on a lot of deals. And we see other people buy them, and we see other people end up getting in trouble because of it. And I've rescued a lot of people out of a lot of pain because they went by agents that are not experienced in the field and that are not really ethical in the field either. A little bit of both, but a lot of times agents, will scramble or they just don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they're just not.
I think a lot of times, and maybe Reggie wants to comment on this. A lot of times, these agents, I really think a lot of agents, most at least, I'm going to say, are well intentioned.
Yeah.
They just have no clue.
Right?
They're
just trying to find it, scramble. Yeah. They're like, okay, that doesn't work. And they don't understand. Like when I look at values, I'm looking at market trends because I'm looking at the big picture. I'm just not looking to find 3 comps. I'm looking to find the right comps that are. I think when I'm looking at value, I've done so many rebuttals. I know how to think like an appraiser. I know what their language is. I know what they eat for breakfast. I know what they eat for dinner. You know what I mean? I know how they think, and that's what separates us. Whereas other agents will go in an area like, okay, so this one's maybe a little bit outside the mile radius. This one's okay. I got to get the highest ones. Okay, maybe they're not the closest, and then they don't look alike. They're totally different buildings, but they support the value. Well, they're doing a disservice to an investor when they do that, because when the curtain rises and the appraiser looks at it, he's going to say, no, you can't use that because that's a Georgian, it's not a bungalow, and that's a Cape Cod. These are where you have these 3 properties right around it. You should have chosen those first, and really the value is not worth 205, it's worth 190. So now the investor is discouraged, or they back out of the deal hoping that they get a new appraisal, and then the appraiser's going to come back and say the same thing. But they're getting a lot of bad advice, and I think you're right. I think for the majority that most agents are well-intentioned, they're just not educated.
Right.
They
just haven't. Right. I mean, I want to pick you to pick up from there.
I was going to say the other thing is there's no substitute for boots on the ground that understand from the ground up what they're dealing with, both from a house perspective, from a neighborhood perspective, from a block perspective. You have to understand these things. And while you may be in California and have analytics that are telling you something, there's no substitute for an agent that's there that understands what they're doing, and they have a multitude of experience, and they've done this over and over again.
Let me interject on that just for a second. That is huge, because there's a lot of technology-only products right now. There's a lot of there's always that question, is technology going to take over? When the internet came on, everybody's afraid that, real estate agents are going to be out of business. When the MLS went from a book to the internet, they thought, okay, realtors are going to be out of business. When Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, all those cats, when they hit the, okay, realtors are out of business. Technology is great. It's a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the major piece. If the X's and O's don't always cut it. Will it work? Yeah, it'll work, some of the times. And then some of the times it's not going to work, because like what this guy does when he gets out there, he's looking, okay, there's across the street, there's all these 24-unit buildings. This property is worth $80,000 less because of that. Who's going to want to buy a $250,000 house and get up in the morning and just see all these renters coming out? It significantly devalues. Because we have the experience. We know right away how much the property is going to be devalued by certain things. And not every book it has the same insides.
So I want him to pick that up. So let's just say, and this has happened, right? We have called you guys, we've called you and go, hey Reggie, there's a property on XYZ block, right? And a lot of times both of you will go, is it the 800 block or 700 block? I'm like, man, I don't know the 900 block versus the 2000 block. I have no idea. I have no clue.
Right.
All I got is an address. Google says, or Zillow says it's this. And what happens when you drive by the property? There's a lot of times you guys know so many houses there. You guys, in your mind's eye, have an idea of kind of what it is. And then you're going to drive by. What are the things you're looking for?
I like what Frank said a minute ago. It's a piece to the puzzle.
Right.
So whenever I look at a property or look at one thing, it's a piece to the puzzle. So think of it as you're taking this big puzzle and you're filling in pieces. Everything is a nuance. So as you walk through the house, how does this house flow? What kind of curb appeal does the house have? You say, well, why are these important? These are important because once we go to sell the property, it's what's the prospective buyer think is going to, right. There's always two things. There's the appraisal end and there's a buyer end. So we don't just have to hit numbers on one end. We've got to find an active buyer who's willing to put their money on the line to buy this house. We have to have these two things together. And consequently, every house that you look at, from a neighborhood perspective, from a block perspective, from the type of house, the way it flows, the curb appeal when you're done, all these things are going to come together. And you can't immediately just say, oh, well, this doesn't work because there's the train tracks 3 doors down. Well, if the neighborhood's good enough, it really doesn't matter that there's a train track there. But if the neighborhood's a marginal neighborhood to begin with, and there's other things, you should never buy that house. So you just have to take all this puzzle pieces, put them together, Andrew, as you well know,
right,
and then go from there.
So I want to talk about profit. right? In today's market, right? What is something reasonable, right? People take our advice and work with professionals like you guys, right? What is something reasonable that people can expect, both basically on flips and on rentals? How's the market in terms of profits on rentals in that area also? Because we see things like, obviously, in Chicago, politics has been and always will be a very big piece of this whole thing, right? You have to understand the blocks, who lives in the blocks, who is the one to get things done. I mean, that's just, any big city is going to have its quirks, right? And we have that in Chicago, right? But what are the numbers that you guys see that are reasonably doable in today's market, both on the flip end and or on the rental end?
I would just say, and Frank can handle the flip end, let me just say from the rental end, Andrew and I were talking before we came in about the great potential that the Southside has for rentals. These are blocks that have, in some cases, that have been stable for 30 years, 35 years. They're continually trending upward. And, if you've looked at the South Suburb taxes lately, you realize how high those can be. Generally in the city, they're much less. They're much easier. You've got the bus system, you've got transportation, you've got the red line. You've got all these things that play in for a renter, and there's a lot of opportunity. Your numbers are going to look a lot better, and you're going to get two bangs for the buck. You're going to get the equity in the property over the long period of time if you buy in the right location, and number two, you're going to get that cash flow because you're not going to have as many high fees and high taxes as you do in a lot of suburbs.
Frank, how about on the flip end? What do you think is reasonable today?
So let me just give a quick comment first before I start, Andrew. The market's always shifting. The market goes like it never. So right now, I would say on the south side, probably 15 to 20% is there's a lot of buys in there. I think historically, you'll see in as far as the bell curve with returns, without your ROI is going to be anywhere from a low of 15% to maybe a high of, on the average, of 30%. The problem is when it hits the top of the bell curve, that's when everybody gets in.
Right.
And then everybody starts starts overpaying and starts driving back down to that 15%. So we're on the low end size of the cycle now. And a lot of people, when they realize they're not, this isn't a HGTV, get rich quick, real simple kind of, this is different, and there's a lot of moving parts. And it's a lot more difficult than they show on TV. When people realize that, then they get back out of the game, and then there's less competition, and the value and the ROI goes up again. But anywhere in the 15 to 20%, there's plenty of business. There's plenty of opportunity.
So let me explain that. And we're talking about 15 to 20% in 6 months, right?
Six to seven months.
6 to 7 months
is
right? 6 to 7 months. What that means is, if you think about it, that's after your cost, after everything is said and done. Mm-hmm. So for the year, you have a yield of 35-40%.
Right.
I mean, cash on cash yield with rental properties in Chicago. Chicago, I've always said, has been since 2009 the #1 market for rental properties. Guys, there's nowhere in the country where you can get a 40 to 45% cash on cash yield with an equity position of 30, 35, 40%. And that exists right here in Chicago, and specifically in the markets that these guys happen to dominate. I mean, it's amazing. The problem is this, that literally in the market you guys are in, you can lose your shirt, or over a period of time, and I mean a period of time, 3 to 4 years, you can become the king. And I mean it sincerely. If I knew the Southside market, right, like I know the suburban market, I would have never bought a single house in the suburban market. Why? Because much more opportunity. You have to understand the people, you have to understand the politicians, you have to understand the building codes, you have to understand the right realtor in that area. The reason we have them here is for that reason, because what people think is, well, I'm going to go and duplicate 35, 40 years experience, 35, 40 years experience, 80 years combined experience doing 3, 4, 5, 6,000 transactions in that time, and I think I'm going to outsmart them because I got Google, right? I think you've lost your mind. This is just me, right? that I truly think there's a place for professionals, and we talked about it. We were laughing about this, is you can hire professionals that'll help you buy, that'll help you sell. $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 that you're paying the professional out of the piece of the deal, and you can make 30, 40, 50. I mean, that's 10 times.
That's why a third of our clients are realtors, because they get it. They see our value. They don't have the experience. They minimize their risk by going with us. So they figure we're almost like an insurance policy. When they look at it, they hire us. They're like, oh, good, I don't need to worry about. I can't tell you how many agents have come to me and say, hey man, I can't move this. I bought this on the Southside. I live in Lincoln Park. I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I watched enough HGTV shows, and I thought I was, the next guy on Flip This House, Flip Windy City, or whatever all that jazz is. It's not that easy, and so because of the fact that the South Side, the biggest rap on the South Side is, we were talking about this earlier, Andrew. Perception is reality. So the perception of the South Side is actually the opposite of what it is. So I hear agents say, I'm not going over there. I'm like, bye, because we're going to be making a lot of money over there, and we're going to be helping a lot of people.
No, I mean, let's just, instead of beating around the bush, let's just talk about it. Right? People like me, right? I mean, we're supposed to be realtors, right? We're not supposed to have any bias.
Right.
We're not supposed to be human beings, right? This is what the thing is. But think about this. What do you see on TV when you see about Southside?
Your bias is driven by media.
What do you see? Right? The only time Southside comes up is if a cop is killed, if a kid does something stupid, right? It doesn't come up with a normal human being living in Southside. My impression of, people around the world, people around the country, where do you live? It's like, well, in Chicago. Like, yeah, man, they're shooting people. Guess what that comes from? This is the only
media
thing, right?
Media warps perception.
They know Will's Tower, and then they know the Bean, and then, oh man, it's crazy over there. What do you think? People just running around with guns all the time?
He's out every day, though.
Right. The real story is there's solid middle-class neighborhoods everywhere, and they've been that way for 50 years, and they are going to continue to trend that way.
Shh, don't tell all the North Side realtors. We don't want them down there.
We just have to be selective as to where you go.
And nobody's denying that there are pockets that have challenges. I mean,
of course,
there's no question about it, right? But there are, from a standpoint purely of an investor, and making money, there's a hell of a lot of opportunity. That's all I got to say.
Absolutely.
It's insane.
Absolutely.
So, guys, as we kind of wrap this up, because we could talk about this for the next 10 hours, right? So, as we wrap this up, what would be your advice to somebody who says, man, this all sounds great. How do I get started? How do I kind of contact you guys? What would be a place where they can reach you? And what would be a guidance you would give them? Somebody wants to be a successful flipper or own rentals in today's market.
Sure. So I'll keep things kind of simple. You can call me, and I will pass you on to Reggie and some of our team members, the field guys that help you find properties. We have access to a lot of off-market properties that's really hot in this market now. Second of all, you want to make sure you have funds. If you don't have money in place, we can help you find hard money. Private money, but it's like having a car with no gas. You can't move the car. You're not going to be able to buy without your proof of funds and your docs to set up whether you're buying an LLC. Or a corporation. We can help you with all those things. So that's extremely important. And then the other thing is trust us. Trust the process. We have a history of providing high ROIs and solid ROIs. The thing that's the most damaging thing I've seen is when somebody comes in and they'll say, hey, I don't think we should do this. Look, I'm the most creative guy in the world. When I hear a new idea, when I see somebody else doing something, I'm taking notes. I'm like, hey, I think that's gonna work. But when somebody comes in and say, look, I don't want to replace the trim, for example, I'm gonna say, okay, have you ever sold a house before? No. I said, what do you think? We're selling to women. Guys, for the most, we don't really care. Do we have a TV? Can we watch our sports? Do we have a bed? Do we have our own man cave? We're going to hang out with our boys. That's our primary basic needs. Women want to invite their friends over. They want to have a beautiful kitchen. You send somebody in a beautiful kitchen, and they have this godforsaken awful trim that's been painted over and peeling and painted over and peeling, and it just destroys the beauty of a rehab home. And the amazing part is you can save $2,000 by cutting that corner, and it's going to cost you $30,000 in the long run. I've seen it time and time over again. When I get a listing, I'm trying to help somebody out, rescue them. I'm like, do me a favor, okay? You want to maximize your ROI? Replace the trim. I don't want to do that. I don't have any extra money. I said, no problem. I can get you. I can hook you up with a money source. But yeah, I mean, you have to trust the process. Okay, you're coming into business and you don't know anything about the business. That means you don't know anything about the business. And listen and learn. We have 35, 39 years of experience of failing forward. We've made the mistakes. We've seen other people make the mistakes. We see it all the time. We have loads of experience. When we tell you something, it's not based on us watching some HGTV show or us, talking to a couple of friends. It's based on years and years of failing forward. We have the experience. If you're smart, you'll utilize that. You'll listen. I don't have a problem with suggestions, but when you make a suggestion, listen to what I'll tell you, because I'll tell you, look, that doesn't work, because that's going to cost you X amount of dollars, because it's not an X and O's issue. It's no longer an appraiser will come in. He may appraise it. He won't take a discount like trim, for example, but a buyer comes in and they've got all this other competition and they're looking for a reason to discount a house. They'll say, this place looks terrible. I can't bring my friends in because I'm not going to be proud of this home. I'm going to be embarrassed of this home. So now you reduce your playing field. So guys, it's contacting us. My number is 708-307-0777. Now I'm extremely busy. I will get back to you. Be patient, but then I'm going to be transferring you on to somebody on the team. Probably start with Reggie, and then we'll go straight down the line.
So hold on, Frank. You said your number is 708-307-0777.
Yes.
Right? So I asked you for a pearl or two of wisdom. You gave out the necklace, right? Just now. Okay. So from your end, Reggie, what would you say? Like Frank said, number one thing is contact you guys. Number two, he gave out his number, which is 708-307-0777. Number two thing you said is about funding, right? And if you guys don't have funding, call them. They'll connect you with chicagofunding.org. We're happy to make sure Chicago Funding has a deal, which is that if you're coming through them, they'll be happy to provide you with proof of funds. But you need to call and you need to have a legitimate proof of funds. And guys, listen, most of us start with a hope and a prayer. This is normal. There's nothing to feel ashamed of if you're just starting out. That's how we all start. But be honest, tell professionals what you're doing so they can guide you and help you in the right way. So you call them, they'll connect you with chicagofunding.org. And he said that, he didn't say it this way, but I'm saying it this way, which is the devil is in the details, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to invest local and succeed locally, you need to learn locally. Learn from the local experts. And then the fourth thing, I think what you were saying is that you need to actually listen to the advice that you're being given. Anything he may have missed that you want to add into it, Reggie?
No, just look for somebody with a successful track record who's done this year after year. And we've done that. Obviously, Andrew's done that. And if you're dealing with a person like that who has your best interests at heart and you follow the advice, you're going to be successful. If you try to do it on your own or you shortcut those methods, you may have problems.
So, gentlemen, thank you much. This has been absolutely fabulous. I think anybody watching is going to definitely enjoy it. Guys, I don't know what else to say. See, you can learn from somebody who thinks what's going to happen in real estate, or you can learn from 80 years of experience combined, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 successful transactions. See, if I was going to learn from somebody, this is the type of team I would want to learn from. This is Andrew Holmes saying thank you to Mr. Frank Montro. Thank you, Mr. Reggie. This is the Frank Montro team. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you, Andrew.
I hope you enjoyed the episode on andrewholmestv.com. To learn more and to take your business to the next level, the one place you need to be is on February 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. See, imagine being with the best minds in real estate at one place and one time. That's going to be February 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. The way to register is go to andrewholmestv.com. I'm excited and thrilled and hope to see you there.